Hello everyone, welcome back again to my online NPTEL course on structure, form and architecture, the synergy. So, we have gone through several lectures, several sessions over last few weeks, and we have discussed many issues, and today we are at the last lecture of this series, and this is lecture number 40, and here we will basically discuss nothing new to it, but what the journey that we have made so far. What, like, we have discussed various issues, we have discussed on material, we have discussed on different techniques, different structural form. Then we have also seen the change, the architectural evolution from the primitive age to the present age. So, with this, the name of this session, name of this lecture is basically structure and architecture, the past, the present and the future. So, we will be discussing on that. Now, as at the beginning of the lecture, probably the first lecture, we have discussed various definition of architecture, form and structure. Here again just get to know about the definition. So, there are multiple definitions of architecture given by different architects, famous architects with different personalities, but at the same time, if I take something in very short, like architecture is basically articulation of spaces with proper application of your science, technology and sociology as well. So, all other aspect will govern the type of outcome that we are expecting as architecture. Now, if we just see in this slide, architecture is articulation of spaces to, there are different purposes. So, let us discuss this one by one. So, protect from externalities both nature and predators, and this was the main root cause of making buildings. If you recall, if I am sure that all of us we read in history, maybe when we started reading history that time itself, like earlier our primitive men. So, they used to live in the cave. Why? Because that they found is safe to protect themselves from other animals or maybe other natural calamities with a heavy wind, flood, something like that. But that cave is not considered to be the man-made architecture. It was not made by that person or the people of that time. Now, gradually over the time, because of some changes required in the system, the men they started developing their own houses, whether it is tree house or then later on maybe your stone structure, stone hinge, or maybe in the modern age where we are almost virtually touching the sky with the skyscraper. This whole journey, there is one single point that actually influence, that is the need. Whenever there is a problem, whenever there is a challenge to the human being, they just realize that they need something to do, they need something to improve, and then gradually all the innovations that came into picture, not in the building section, all the innovations you take, if there is no need, there is no invention. And then gradually, like based on the search, based on the experiment, based on the failure, based on different success. So, now we are in this present age, and gradually now the process has not been stopped. Thousand and thousand years that we know from the history, whatever something is documented, that how human their building technology that improved to this present day. But yes, to protect from those externalities, both natural and from the other predators, that was the threat that time, definitely from other animals and all, and that were of the gigantic size. It's not like the now then men comment over other animals, but during that time that was a challenge, and then they created that. Now, it is also to ensure safety and security of resources. This is very important. If you have some resources with you, definitely you want some place where you can keep it. If you open in like if you stay in a open to sky area, so the security level will be less. There will be different threat of losing the resources. Facilitate family living. So when they used to make the family then the living like in a community, so they need some kind of settlements that also very much required. Like it is not that I roam around here and there, so definitely with that social community bonding, so that also facilitated by a building. Provide privacy, that is also very important, which can be created. Achieve desired aesthetic. So, not only making your simple structure, but in order to make it visually pleasant, people also they have done with the basic structure. It is safe, but definitely people they prefer to make it more beautiful. So, that is something where definitely it is not directly related to the safety or other thing, but yes, that the visual pleasure. Say for example, when you make a building, so we all know, we tested that if you make your building with this particular reinforced concrete structure, and then we just make frame structure, then the brick work, that is good enough. But then if we add plaster is okay, then if you make it just plastering it's okay, but why we go for painting it and different kind of shade painting, putting a some kind of artifacts there is basically not improving the strength of the building. It's basically a visual pleasure that one always try to make their building so beautiful that will be appreciated by others. So, this is another reason that also people they try to innovate something which can add some value. Explore opportunities, and this is something where we all can agree, like whenever we are doing something and we are repeatedly getting the same thing, the same food. Say for example, if we are taking same food each day, thrice a day, then probably we will get bored. We always try to get something different. Even the ingredients are same, we will try something different, or else we just try something totally different from what is available to us, and we taste it. If we like it, we can take a move. Say you have practiced, suppose you are taking a food from a canteen and you like that canteen very much, and there is a new canteen come up, and then definitely you are going to try that canteen, and then when you get that food is even better, then you will get a shift. So, it is true for any innovation where we keep on investing how we can improve the situation, and there is no end to it. And if there is a end virtually, that means there will be no progress after that. So, that need is always be there to have the innovation. Optimality is another thing where, like how you can optimal the resources, the construction. In other lectures we have also discussed something on the effectiveness. So, this optimality in design parameters, in structural arrangement, that is always a challenge, and then if you can achieve it, that will be good. Nothing can be better than that. Then the last word is very vital word, and nowadays like it is being applied everywhere, as the sustainability. So, sustainability concept is something where definitely it says that you use the resources in such a manner that will not disturb the future. The future generation can also get something out of that, because whatever we are using to build our environment, so we are using natural resources directly, indirectly, and we are also damaging the environment, but that will be a threat for the future generation to come. So, better if we go for at least this concept of your built environment or the building, if we can pick up some of the things which will be environmentally safe, also economically viable, and also socially accepted. So, your economical, social, and then environmental, these three will give a sustainable environment, and the building can be one of the major factor to that. This sustainability can be applied in other area as well, but we'll stick to the architecture, and we are not going to discuss detail of the sustainable architecture in this lecture, because that is again a full-fledged subject that has different part, but in the context of the need of a better articulation, better architecture, I just mentioned this particular term. Now, we will just go through some of the images. So, this lecture purposefully I have not put many words, many text to define anything. So, through this picture we will try to understand the journey from like the first house to even it's continuing. We do not have any perfect idea that after 50 years or after 100 years what will be the building typology, how building will look like, and what would be the material, how that will be constructed. But at least with the trend we can guess something that what could be and like what will be the scenario. So, this is some representative photographs of a cave, and that was a natural resources, that was a gift we can consider to the human being at that time to get the shelter inside that, which helped them to protect themselves from the externalities. Now, after that when they started making at their own, so they used this TP, and then the tree houses like they started making their houses with the branch of trees, and then also the material, the agriculture based material, or maybe even earlier like in some presentation we have seen that they use the skin of the animal they hunt, and then they make the structure at their own. So, these are some of the primitive structure they made, and like they use the available material which is easily available, they just try to make it. Now, this is the structure which is very important, and then it has very much importance to the evolution. So, where the structure is being made with the stone, and then this is the first your post, not the post, is basically rather the wall slab construction. So, where the stone is being placed in such a situation which is your as a cantilever to the base, and then on top of this they support the another slab, and that is create some enclosure. And there are many examples where this has been used even in the temple, even in for small structure. So, this is something very much primitive, and that progress has been started where the wall slab construction is in the picture. Next to that, this is again a representative picture. We cannot have a real one, but during the time of Neolithic age, that time like they were in a position to just move from this hunting to they started growing crops, and then they started making the buildings next to the river bank, because a portion they were also engaged in the fishing activity, and they use very simple structure. They use the mud, and then they use the the timber or the bamboo like material branches, and then they use the crops like those straw to make the roof. And the plan is very simple that time. So, this is basically the circular plan, easy to construct, the conical roof at the top. So, this is at that time. Now, later on then there is a shift from that to the ancient civilizations, and then Egyptian civilization is one of the wonders. Still we are amazed that how this kind of great pyramid being created that time with a stone one after another, so perfect arrangement, so that still this is something really we can appreciate. So, they have started making this building, but this is something is not the building to really live, it has another value. So, there was a belief of life after death, and then on that purpose this has been designed, and the mummy is kept, and then all the belongings is also kept with him after death. Now, after that, if you see the Greek civilization and all, then also like believe in gods and the hierarchy of like to be placed. So, this is the Parthenon, which is remains of the Parthenon that is being placed in front of you. So, again here is the change again. So, earlier in that Stonehenge, when we have discussed the wall slab combination, so here it is basically your post beam construction, where it was realized that you do not need to make very solid wall. Instead of that, you can use the post, or later on is being used as a column beam structure, and that is really giving the satisfactory result. And that has been practiced in Greek as well as in Roman, when we have seen some structure like Pantheon and all. Now, this is something from the Rome, where this multi-story structure being made with this kind of masonry work and use of arches. Now, slowly if you see, even this is not very simple architecture or just to have a very rough finish. Each of the columns look very identical. So, that means the sense is basically not the supporting the structure, it is now beyond that. In order to make it beautiful, attractive, in order to present it to the so called like the belief in God and all. So, all these minor details to that, all this curvature, all this design in the capital, whether it is Doric, Corinthian or Gothic kind of capital, that is really something beautiful. So many thousands years back, this kind of arrangement is really appreciable. So, there is a move from a simple structure to now ornamenting structure, and that journey is started from this Greek and Roman, and gradually even will follow up it in the Byzantine Gothic age. So, this is again a multi-story structure. The masonry came into picture, and then what I was talking about during the Gothic. So, this structure, like looking into this image, so definitely the basic requirement to get shelter and all that deviate little bit. Now is the buildings for the community, buildings for the religions, and all these worship came into picture. Like it is not the own house to just protect myself, is basically the belief in some kind of superpower, and then the community building, like whether it is making the church, whether it is making some kind of temple, and whatever the form they just were looking for. And then if you see the ornamentation, like the arches, their carvings, and then the details, the selection of the material, like the stone, different kind of stone. So, ornamentation of structure was really practiced that time, and still they are existing in the world, and then definitely those creations is really appreciable. And along with that, what I just forgot to mention, then this is basically the scale. So, when you talk about the scale of architecture, the scale in architecture is basically with respect to the human being. So, then in earlier cases is all like, if you see this pyramid, the height of the pyramid, and what should be the size of a mummy, that is a human height, and compared to that, this height is something really very big and gigantic. So, gigantic scale, and then even here also those columns, beams, they are also making in gigantic scale. But gradually then the ornamentation, and then when the minimalistic form has come afterwards, that we have discussed in some of the lectures of the evolution of the architectural system. Then this is something known to us, I guess all of us we know this building. Again, this building is not for just to have a regular type building. So again you can see the scale, the composition, the beauty, ornamentation is so beautiful. So this is some type of architecture that has been created. Maybe the purpose differs. Sometimes it is just to live, sometimes it showcase the some kind of power. Even the Victory Tower in India. So that sometimes those kind of structure is made for showcase the prosperity of the king or show the the power of the king or the who in the top level of the social hierarchy. So they are showcasing this kind of elements. Again, the scale is very much gigantic to that. Now there is a move. So I am not here giving a chronological order or giving a time series, but again the move like this is something in Sydney Opera House, the technology being changed. Now coming from the traditional your masonry work, load bearing work, now it's transformed to the shell structure. And then we have discussed in detail in in some in form of some lectures, like I guess almost 3 to 5 lectures on different kind of structural form which is non traditional to the load bearing or very regular structure, the sail structure, dome structure, then you have the space frame structure like that. This is something another improvement. Now this is another wonder where the space frame being used as reinforcement and like this structure being made with the space frame. So this is a design by architect Zaha Hadid. Again this form like it's not regular, now it's breaking that particular conventional straightforward orthogonal architecture to this kind of form where there is not much ornamentation itself, it is showing a ornament. It's no additional ornamentation is required. This kind of building itself is representing as ornament. Now coming to that, this is another scale, and now coming to the residential scale where it is in human scale. You need some space to live with your family or just live your what we can, you can just protect yourself from the other openness. So in that case this is a Habitat 67 that was made, and where this different cuboid this very rectangular shape that has been arranged in such a manner that all will get the facility to get some kind of view and exposure. So this is another arrangement where like it's not horizontal, is a combination of horizontal and vertical combination that is of the scale. So far whatever the pictures we have seen starting from the Cape to this, so the journey changes at various time, like the scale change, the ornamentation, the structural arrangement, the materials, all the components they keep on changing to coming to the the present day, and it's all because of the need. When there was need to make such gigantic structure that was on the command of a king, so that was made. Then suddenly there is a demand for the individuals, the larger community, then this kind of structure being made. And then that has something the composition being established, and then suddenly like this some requirement is there to go high rise. The reason is the space availability for the metro cities, and like where almost like if you consider New York and other cities like in Shanghai, so already they have done it before, but now it is in practice in India as well. This is a picture from Kolkata and is proposed already, it's come almost in the verge of completion. Everything it will be used in very soon. So this is basically the 42, and now as per the record, this is the tallest building in India which is constructed. Like before that, there were some buildings, Imperial 1 and 2 and Mumbai, that was considered to be the tallest, but now this will be the tallest in Kolkata. And you can see that the earlier tallest, that how it is suppressing, and then days to come it will be something like that, which will solve the need of the living space. And then this is basically the high rise structure, high rise residential or mixed use towers which will have. So, in some presentations we have discussed the some buildings like the Shanghai Tower, where it is considered to be city within city, all the facilities, shoppings, that is already being planned in the same building. So, similar to that, this is again that was from India, and this is the world, like still before the Kingdom Tower. So, this is basically the concept to be the tallest tower like building in the world. So, this is basically the Burj Khalifa. And again, if you consider the structural system, so definitely it changes with the height. We have seen in the recent lectures that how the evolution of the high rise building that developed, like starting from a small 2-3 story building to the 100 story 200 story building, how it's being made, and different structural form, how the tube structure, how like your different shear wall, different advanced structure, tube in tube structure, then the outrigger, exterior structure, interior structures, those are those systems are developed to just get this kind of result, which will actually be safe from all this lateral load due to the heavy wind pressure at different height, or maybe to be safe from the seismic activity. Now, this is something again you can see the composition where it is being taken from the Dubai, and the construction is now going on all high rise development. So, where you can see that scale here it is not basically gigantic because it like consists of different floors, but the overall skyline has changed, and this is this has happened not just for like to make something very much high to just get some kind of appreciation or to get declared the tallest building. To solve the purpose within a limited area, with the compact area, how you can serve maximum population. So, that is something, the engineering, that innovation that help to make this kind of building so high rise. This is another example, and this is from your New York. So, you can see that overall urbanization, if you see that all buildings, they are almost multi-story building, and that was the need within the stipulated area. It is all compacted, and definitely we should even go in future, like this is already being developed. Now, there will be increase in population and there is no such land. So, either we have to go for some alternative to make some structure using the underwater structure. Some part of the world we do have this, or maybe some engineering by which we can solve the purpose of the people. This is from again Shanghai. So, this is the Shanghai Tower I just mentioned earlier, and then if you see the skyline and you see that human scale. So, the skyline itself is basically showing some wonders, and this all architecture. Again, if you consider the height of the pyramid and all, they will some match with this height, but now the purpose it can cater huge number of population. So, the purpose has changed for going high rise. But at the same time, when you talk about the high rise building, very much advanced structure, but there are other factors as well, where like a particular building to be made for showing the culture, the typology of the building, like this is some example I have picked up from Japan. So, Japanese temple is something like this, where you think for take any temples from the southern part of India. So, you will get a different kind of form. So then probably your orthogonal or that kind of tube structure will not work. So this ornamentation still has some value, where this form itself giving the typology. So looking at this, we can see that this is basically a Japanese architecture, or this is a Mongol architecture. So this building typology is also to be carried out. Now, so far whatever we have seen and all, so this is something definitely aspiring, inspiring and very high class. Now, this is something where also it is a slum development, and this is from the Dharavi in Mumbai. So, here also the space is essential constraint, but then also the affordability plays a crucial role. So, this entire area where it is horizontally spreaded and the life is really very much suffering. So, if you search about that, there are many documentary, there are different videos as well. So, where you can see the conditions of the life. So, what exactly the progress we have made to give the built environment is now we have to think on it. So, how to do it, how to improve it. Now, in this case, this is something where again is something futuristic, where the city, like all this park that is moved up. So, these are some hypothetical projects that can be developed, where this can be made at some upper level, and then this is something where like your Habitat 67. So, this kind of development of houses can be made. Now, this is very catchy point in this slide, and this is one of the important slide that we need to understand, that change is the only constant. The statement is very much famous, and exactly this is something we need to. If we do not change, then probably we will be losing something. We cannot really sustain with that. So, for that what change we require? The purpose has changed, and that we have seen from those examples. Earlier, sometimes the purpose may be only to showcase the power of the king, that is why so gigantic structure is made, invested so much of capital to that, whereas the common people, their need was not that much highlighted. But now the purpose is to serve. If we consider this slum and all, though this is something where the affordability is concerned, but definitely we should go for some low cost, cost effective solutions for them, so that they can also enjoy the built environment. The requirements has changed. Earlier the requirement was different, nowadays with the different gadgets and all. So, we need some buildings where it will be very smart building, where based on your instruction, that building will perform accordingly. So, this application of IT information technology has come into this, and there are other requirements. The loads, this is something was there, is present also, and it will be, but then to tackle these loads, different technology, different construction technology, different arrangement of structure has been developed, and then this is taking into consideration. The architectural design has changed, whether it was of the minimalistic form, or maybe it is of making something very broad, that has changed. Culture, this culture plays crucial role to make the form and structure, and that we have seen in case of the temple, or in case of your pyramid, and then maybe the Taj Mahal, and then so on. The geological and geographical condition of the site, again it has changed a lot, like from the primitive age, there was some age of dinosaurs, and then there is a sudden change, multiple major earthquakes, tsunami, then asteroid attack. So, the world has changed, and then geographical condition and keep on changing. The temperature of the earth is changing day by day. The global warming has started affecting. So, with that geological geographical condition of the site changes, accordingly the selection of the building typology, that also changed. Now, the climate This is another impact that already I have talked about. The climate has changed. So, for that accordingly how you make your building climate responsive, how you really tackle that issue, the high tornado or maybe the high heat in case of any summer situation in Dubai that we have discussed in some other lectures, then where like the fascia should be designed in such a manner that which will protect from this. The material improvement is like each minute there is some improvement in that. Whether earlier there was no availability of concrete, so people they started making it with the mud, and then gradually they started with the lime, and then the machinery work, and then the concrete, and then the steel, and then the composite, and then nanocarbon. So keep on increasing the number of options, and then there is a particular requirement to select the material. The machinery has changed, different crane, different robots now being used, as already I have mentioned earlier in this, like the 3D printers, and then automated more automation to the construction, so that the building can have the minimal error, and then that will have also the quality control, and also it can be a speedy construction. The manpower, again there also its automation, like the portion that people can really that robot can help that, but at the same time the manpower also includes, it's not about the labor, as I mentioned earlier, that it also includes the intellectuals who are making this innovation and all. So this is very vital for, like, we are very much helpful to those scientists, to those engineers who develop alternative materials and just improve that scenario which will actually tackle all these issues. Then the methods is the similar thing, how you construct. Then the money is again a very much critical issue, where the affordability can make, wherever there is some developed situation, developed economy, so we can have that impact on the overall urban settlement and the building as well. The time and the technology, that also, like, this is basically the 6 aims that we talked about, that also change. That time, like earlier a building requires a 6 month of time for 1 or 2 story building, and now with the prefabrication, with the modern techniques, within a week or within a month the multi-story building is formed and is ready for the use. So this is the improvement that already we have made, and we are in a process to even go beyond that, taking the application of IT, different artificial intelligence, minimizing the risk of any other issue, and then it can all come through the innovation. So we need innovation, we first require a need. So need is the seed, and then that will actually instigate the innovation. So I started the lecture with the need, and then I am almost in a in the end of this presentation, where I said innovation, and this is basically it's continuing. So this is continuing, still we get innovation, we always make betterment in our building structure and form the selection. So this is very useful, and then definitely I just simply mentioned this slide. This is the sustainability, where like whatever we make, whatever the technology we use, whatever the material we use, we should think for making the built environment sustainable. That is also referred to the green architecture or green development. So it has some component where the construction material should be eco-friendly, will have very minimal effect or no effect to the environment. The indoor quality, where basically you can make it with the health and other thing, with the daylighting and ventilation. Then the water is very much precious resource for us, and for that the proper use, the building water independent building, and that can actually optimize the use of water is desired. Then the site, wherever you make your site, then basically it should evolve with the site, and then the proper maintenance, it should not disturb the ecology of this. and then the beauty and freshness, that is again another view, that with all these you should not really make something very boring, people will not adopt. So, there will be no compromise on the structural point of view, even we can do excellence on the aesthetic, and then the renewable energy, because not only the energy that we are talking about to like switching on the AC or all, even during the procurement of the building materials there is energy involved, the transportation also energy involved, then the during construction energy involved, even there are some energy which also lead to the embedded energy of the material, and the research is also going on to just minimize, to have some materials will have this kind of minimization in the energy sector. So, with all these parameters, if we can make something really a green architecture or sustainable architecture, that will be really helpful for the future. So, the practice is already been done. There are different agencies like GRIHA, even the leads in the international scale, so who are making some rating, and there are more. Even this subject is very interesting, and definitely either you have gone through this subject or maybe in future in your curriculum you will get it. There are materials available on sustainability, but this is a full fledged subject. I cannot really cover all of them into this. I just highlighted this part where the importance of sustainable architecture for the future generation is very vital, and we can contribute in many ways of taking the parameters as well, where this particular roof gardening is being considered, where the ventilation, cooling, heating, the passive solar application. So, these all can help to make a building sustainable. So, here you can see that along with this greenery and all, this is vertical, but again it is giving some good result. Now, this is basically the concluding slide for this particular lecture as well as for the entire course. As I mentioned that this is the last lecture of this particular course, and this picture is self explanatory. So, where we started earlier with the Stonehenge, and then now this is the Marina Bay Sands Hotel. So, it is almost look like, maybe the structural system, structural arrangement, material use, the scale that differs, but basically again in this case we have discussed earlier that this is also constructing of the slab like structure where your building is having some incline. So, if you see from this section, so you have this kind of two slab, and then these three buildings is holding another slab on top of it. So, this is the evolution and it is continuing. So, this is very important to understand for us. Whatever we know, whatever the information we know today, it will be obsolete or it will be backdated tomorrow. So, always our target should know to get updated with the new technology, new materials, new examples which is being practiced, which has been researched and tested to adopt it. It will take time, but definitely it will be the future where we can talk about the materials, the prefabrication, whether we talk about the technology, energy optimization, application of IT to your building design, everything will play around, and also like even going for the alternative materials, how to reuse or minimize the waste, making material out of the waste material. So, there are plenty of area where we can contribute to make a better sustainable built environment, and that actually will be the true follow up for the architecture and structure, their relation from the past, the present and the future. And if we can practice that, that will be justice to this particular learning. And then at the end what I just want to give you a very huge thank for your patience to attend this particular, to join this particular course and to get different idea with the discussion and all. And for that I give you a big thank to all of you who have gone through this, who joined this. And here also the key point that I just repeat, that is your again the change is the only constant. So, this is the line that here, like in other lectures I summarize something that what we have learned, but here is the key point that we should take, the change is the only constant, and that is the reason that from the cave architecture to now Burj Khalifa. So, this is the journey and how the multidimensional improvement that happened over the period, and it is continuing, taking the concept of sustainability, adopting new technologies, materials, and definitely whatever is good for the society, for the human being. With that, I complete this particular course. These are very few reading materials, and then already that is being there in for all the slide. So, thank you very much for attending this course. Thank you.